A quiet night covered the alien forest with a silver glow. The moon above was larger than Earth's moon, and its light touched the trees with strange colors. The forest was alive with sounds, low whispers of wind, the cry of unseen creatures, and the rustle of tall plants that moved like they were breathing. In the middle of this strange land, a small human child walked alone. His clothes were dirty, his face was tired, and his little hands shook as he held a broken toy tightly against his chest. He did not know where he was or how he had reached this place. All he knew was fear, hunger, and the deep wish to see his family again. The air around him was heavy with strange scents, sweet and sharp at the same time. The trees stretched so high they seemed to touch the stars. Every step the child took made the ground echo with small crunching sounds. Suddenly, he stopped. He felt eyes on him. Glowing circles appeared between the trees, watching him from the shadows. They were not human eyes. They were larger, brighter, and strange, glowing blue and green. The child's breath grew faster. He wanted to run, but his legs were too weak. He could only stand and stare. A deep growl came from the darkness. Something moved closer. The child stepped back, but a root caught his foot and he fell hard to the ground. Tears came into his eyes, but he held them back, afraid to make a noise. From the shadows, 3 tall figures appeared. Their skin shone like stone in moonlight, their faces were sharp, and their movements were slow but powerful. They looked terrifying, like monsters from human stories. The child pressed the broken toy to his chest and closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But the end did not come. Instead, one of the creatures bent down, very carefully, and pushed away the root that had trapped the child's foot. Another one held out a strange fruit, glowing softly in the dark. The third one made a sound, low and calm, like a song mixed with words the child could not understand. The child opened his eyes slowly. The tall figures were not attacking him. They were helping him. The child hesitated, then took the fruit. It was soft and sweet, unlike anything he had tasted before. Hunger defeated fear for a moment, and he ate quickly. The tall beings watched him silently, their glowing eyes softer now. The child whispered, almost to himself, "Thank you." The words meant nothing to them, but the tone was clear. The smallest of the tall figures touched the ground and drew a circle with its finger. Then it placed a hand gently over the child's chest, where the heart was beating fast. The child understood only one thing: they meant no harm. A cold wind passed through the trees. The strange forest grew louder. Something else was moving in the distance, something bigger, something that made even the tall protectors turn their heads quickly. They made warning sounds to each other, and one of them lifted the child into its arms. The child gasped but did not fight. The alien's touch was strong but gentle, like a parent carrying their young. In the distance, the sound grew louder, a roar that shook the ground. The trees trembled, and dark shapes crawled through the shadows. The protectors formed a circle around the child, standing tall and ready. Their glowing eyes became sharp, their bodies tense. The child hid his face against the alien's shoulder. He could feel the creature's heart beating fast, like a drum. Suddenly, from the trees, a beast jumped out. It was larger than any animal the child had ever seen, with long jaws and sharp teeth shining in the moonlight. It growled and leaped toward the group. One protector raised its arm, and a sudden flash of blue light shot from its hand. The beast screamed and ran back into the forest. The child's eyes widened. These beings had power, power beyond human weapons, but they used it not against him, but to save him. More beasts followed, their eyes glowing red in the dark. The protectors fought them back with strange energy and heavy strikes, never letting the circle break. Finally, the forest grew quiet again. The beasts vanished. The protectors lowered their arms, breathing heavy, their bodies glowing faintly from the strange energy they had used. The child was still in one protector's arms, safe and untouched. The protector looked down at him. The child looked back, too scared to speak but no longer crying. Slowly, the alien bent down and placed him on the ground again. Then it pointed toward the sky, where far away a small blue star was shining. It was Earth, though the child did not know it. The protector made a sound, a low humming, and then touched its own chest. It repeated the sound again, like it wanted the child to understand its name. The child did not understand the word, but he understood the meaning. This creature was telling him, "I am not your enemy." The night grew colder, but the protectors made a small fire with stones that glowed when they touched them together. Warmth spread around the child. He curled close to the fire, tired and weak, but his eyes kept watching the tall figures. They sat around him in silence, guarding him as if he was one of their own. The child slowly drifted into sleep, but one thought stayed in his mind: why would they save him? What did they want in return? The forest whispered with secrets, and the glowing eyes of the protectors stayed awake, watching the shadows. Somewhere far above, unseen ships floated in space, sending signals back to Earth. Humanity would soon learn that their child was alive, but not alone. He was under the protection of beings unknown, beings who chose kindness where others expected danger. And so the story of Earth's surprising allies had just begun. The child woke up to a pale morning light filtering through the tall trees of the alien forest. For a moment he thought it was all a dream, that he was safe in his own bed, but when he opened his eyes he saw the tall stone-skinned beings sitting silently around him. Their glowing eyes were watching the trees, scanning the forest for danger. The fire from last night had turned to soft ash, but the ground was still warm. The child pulled the broken toy close to his chest and looked around nervously. The protectors did not move toward him. They stayed in their places, calm but alert, like guards standing watch. The smallest of them tilted its head and made a soft humming sound. It reached into a small pouch hanging from its side and pulled out another glowing fruit. It placed the fruit carefully on the ground near the child and moved its hand back slowly, showing it meant no harm. The child was hungry, his stomach tight with emptiness, but he hesitated. The creatures looked frightening, taller than any human he had ever seen, their bodies like stone and their movements strange and heavy. Yet they had saved him last night, they had fought the beasts and kept him alive. Slowly, with shaking hands, the child picked up the fruit. Its surface was smooth and warm, glowing faintly like a living light. He took a small bite. The taste was sweet, filling him with sudden energy. He ate more quickly, and the protectors watched in silence, their eyes softer now. After a while, the protector who had carried him during the night leaned forward. It placed its hand on the ground and drew shapes with its long fingers. Lines, circles, symbols the child could not understand. Then it pointed at the child, then at itself, then at the sky. The child frowned. He did not understand the meaning, but he knew they were trying to communicate. The protector made a low sound, repeating it twice, tapping its chest each time. It was giving him its name, or maybe the name of its people. The child listened carefully and tried to copy the sound, his voice trembling. The protectors all turned their heads toward him. The moment he spoke the strange word, the glowing in their eyes shifted to a softer shade, almost like a smile. Encouraged, the child tapped his own chest and whispered his name. The protectors repeated it in their deep voices, not perfectly but close enough. For the first time since he had arrived, the child felt a small spark of connection. Hours passed slowly. The protectors did not leave his side. They gathered strange plants, checked the ground for tracks, and listened to the forest. One of them gave him water from a container shaped like a crystal. The liquid was clear and cold, and it refreshed him. As the day grew brighter, the child's fear began to fade, though not completely. He kept wondering why these beings were helping him. Did they want something from him? Were they planning to use him for some purpose? Or was it something else, something he could not understand yet? The protectors seemed to sense his confusion. The smallest one sat near him, not too close, and opened its palm. In its hand, a tiny creature crawled out, like an insect with wings of light. It placed the glowing insect near the child's hand and waited. The child slowly extended his fingers. The insect climbed onto his skin and spread its shining wings, glowing brighter. The child laughed softly, the first sound of joy since his arrival. The protectors tilted their heads as if pleased. But peace did not last. In the distance, the forest roared again. A heavy sound, deeper than before, rolled through the trees. The protectors stood quickly, their glowing eyes sharp. The child clutched his toy, his heart racing. One of the protectors lifted him gently again, carrying him with one arm while the others prepared strange weapons that glowed with the same energy they had used before. From the shadows, massive shapes moved. But these were not beasts. These were machines. Tall metal hunters with sharp legs and glowing red lights. They were scanning the forest, moving closer. The protectors growled in their deep voices, forming a protective wall around the child. The machines did not hesitate. A beam of red light shot out, burning the trees. The protectors raised their arms, creating a blue shield that blocked the attack. The ground shook with the impact. The child buried his face in the alien's chest, trembling. The fight began. Blue energy clashed with red fire, the forest exploding with light and sound. The protectors fought fiercely, their bodies glowing brighter each time they struck. They were strong, but the machines were many. The child could only watch in fear. Then something unexpected happened. One of the machines scanned him directly, a beam of red light passing over his small body. The machine stopped attacking. It spoke in a cold mechanical voice that echoed through the trees. The child could not understand the words, but the protectors did. They roared in anger and struck the machine down with a powerful blast. Smoke filled the air. The remaining machines retreated into the shadows, leaving silence behind. The protectors stood breathing hard, their glowing eyes flickering. One of them touched the child's head gently, almost like a parent calming their young. The child did not know what the machines wanted, but he understood one thing clearly. These protectors were not only keeping him alive. They were fighting for him. As the sun began to set, the forest grew quiet again. The protectors built another small fire, their glowing eyes watching the trees carefully. The child sat close to the flames, his toy in his lap, his stomach no longer empty, his fear mixed with wonder. He looked at the tall beings and whispered softly, "Why me?" The protectors could not answer in his language, but one of them pointed again at the sky, then at the child, then at themselves. The meaning was still a mystery, but the child began to understand a little. They were connected. Their fates were tied together. That night, as he closed his eyes near the warmth of the fire, the protectors stood guard once more. They did not rest. They did not leave. Their glowing eyes stayed awake in the dark, watching, waiting, protecting. Somewhere far away, Earth was searching for its lost child, unaware that he was no longer just lost. He was part of something greater, something that would soon change the fate of two species forever. Far away from the alien forest, on Earth, scientists in a hidden research base stared at their screens with wide eyes. For weeks they had been searching for any sign of the missing child, but all hope had nearly faded. Then one morning, strange signals began to appear in their receivers. At first the signals were faint, broken, almost like background noise from the stars, but soon the patterns grew clear. A repeating frequency, a pulse like a heartbeat, mixed with a weak human distress beacon. The scientists froze, unable to believe what they were hearing. They replayed the message again and again. The voice was soft and full of static, but it was the child's voice. He was alive. Excitement spread quickly through the base. Messages were sent to military leaders, governments, and secret councils. The missing child had been found, but he was not alone. Alongside the human signal came another pattern, a language no one had ever seen before, deep sounds mixed with glowing waves of energy. It was alien. The scientists debated, their voices full of fear and wonder. Some said the child had been captured. Others said he was being protected. The signal showed no sign of pain or fear, only steady rhythms, almost calm. The military officers were not so sure. They saw danger in every unknown sound. "Aliens are never saviors," one of them growled. "They want something from us. They want the child for a reason." But the scientists argued back. "Look at the energy pattern," one said, pointing at the glowing wave on the screen. "They are not attacking him. They are keeping him safe." This is not a weapon signal, it is protective shielding. The debate grew louder, spreading to governments around the world. News of the discovery could not be shared with the public yet, but whispers traveled quickly through the halls of power. A decision had to be made. Should they send a rescue mission, or should they wait and study from afar? Every hour mattered. On the alien planet, the child was still alive, but for how long? Finally, a meeting was called. In a large dark room filled with high-ranking officials, scientists presented the evidence. They showed the broken distress signal, the alien energy readings, and images taken from deep space telescopes. The planet where the child was hidden was far, but reachable. A rescue ship could be prepared within days. If we wait, we may lose him forever, one general said. If we go, we risk war with whoever these beings are, another replied. The room grew silent. Then a scientist, an older woman with tired eyes, spoke softly but firmly. We always believed humans were alone. But if these beings chose to protect a human child instead of harming him, then perhaps they are not enemies. Perhaps they are trying to tell us something. Her words stayed in the minds of many. After hours of argument, the decision was made. A small rescue team would be sent, not with weapons of war, but with caution. They would try to make contact, study the protectors, and bring the child home. Preparations began immediately. Engineers worked day and night on a fast vessel capable of reaching the alien planet. Scientists loaded translation devices, scanners, and protective suits. Soldiers trained for every possible danger. The world above did not know the truth, but below the surface, history was being prepared. Meanwhile, signals from the alien planet grew stronger. The child's voice could sometimes be heard more clearly now, short words mixed with static. He seemed tired but safe. At times, the strange alien voices were louder than his, deep tones repeating patterns as if they were teaching him. This troubled some and amazed others. They are communicating with him, a scientist whispered in wonder. He is learning their language, and they are learning his. For the first time, humans had proof of something more than life beyond Earth. They had proof of a bond, a connection, something unexpected. But fear remained. In the halls of military command, darker discussions were taking place. Some officers whispered of using the mission not to rescue, but to capture. If the aliens were real, if they had power strong enough to fight beasts and control energy, then Earth must study them, must take their secrets, before they became a threat. Plans were drawn in shadows, different from the official mission. Not everyone wanted peace. Back on the alien planet, the child sat by the fire with the protectors, learning their sounds, copying their words, while far above, a ship was being readied to cross the stars. Soon two worlds would meet, and no one could say if it would end in peace or in flames. For now, the child was unaware of the storm building across the galaxy. He only knew the kindness of the beings who guarded him. But Earth was watching, and Earth was coming. The alien forest was quiet when the sky above began to glow with fire. The protectors raised their heads at once, their glowing eyes fixed on the heavens. The child followed their gaze and saw a streak of light cutting across the clouds. It was no star and no beast. It was a ship, a human ship, burning through the alien sky as it descended. The protectors growled low, their bodies tense, but they did not run. They formed a circle around the child, their stance protective, ready for danger. The child felt his heart race. For the first time since he had arrived, he saw something familiar, something from Earth. He whispered softly, "Home." The ship landed in a clearing not far away, shaking the ground and sending animals fleeing into the dark trees. Dust and smoke rose high, and the protectors placed the child behind them, keeping him out of sight. A door opened on the side of the ship, and humans stepped out, their suits shining under the alien sun. They moved cautiously, weapons held tight, eyes scanning the forest. At the front was a tall man with sharp eyes, a commander chosen to lead the mission. He raised his hand, signaling the others to spread out. Slowly they advanced, their boots heavy against the strange soil. The child wanted to run to them, to shout and wave, but something inside him hesitated. The protectors had saved him many times, had given him food, water, and safety. Could he just leave them now? The humans pushed deeper into the clearing until they saw the glowing eyes watching them from the shadows. Weapons rose instantly, red dots of light glowing at the ends of their guns. The protectors stepped forward, their bodies tall and strong, their glowing eyes burning brighter. The air grew heavy with tension, a silence sharper than any blade. The child could not hold back anymore. He ran from behind the protectors and shouted, "Stop! Please don't hurt them." The sound of his voice cut through the air like thunder. The humans froze. The commander's eyes widened as he saw the child alive, dirty but breathing, standing beside the towering aliens. Relief and shock filled the faces of the soldiers, but their weapons remained raised. The commander called out, his voice shaking, "We are here to take you home. Step away from them." The child shook his head. "They saved me. They are not bad." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. To them, the aliens looked dangerous, like monsters made of stone. Their glowing eyes and strange energy made fear grow in human hearts. But the child's words were clear, his voice strong despite his small size. The protectors did not move. They stayed still, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans, their bodies ready to strike if the child was harmed. The commander hesitated. He could feel the tension in his team. One wrong move, one sudden noise, and a battle could begin that none of them would survive. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "We don't want to fight," he said firmly, raising his empty hand in a sign of peace. The protectors tilted their heads, their glowing eyes shifting. One of them stepped forward and placed its hand on its chest, making a deep sound, the same sound it had taught the child. The child repeated it aloud, showing the humans it was not a threat but a name. The soldiers whispered among themselves, confused and unsettled. They had expected monsters. Instead, they found protectors. Still, fear lingered. The commander spoke again, his voice heavy. "We must take the child. He belongs with us." The child turned to the protectors, his eyes full of sadness. He did not want to leave them. He remembered the fruit, the glowing insect, the fire, the shield that had saved him from beasts and machines. They had been his family when he had none. One of the protectors placed its large hand gently on his shoulder, lowering its head as if to say goodbye. The child felt tears in his eyes. The humans stepped forward cautiously, ready to take him, but the protectors did not step aside fully. They stayed close, their glowing eyes never leaving the soldiers. It was not trust, but it was not hatred either. It was something in between, a fragile balance that could break at any moment. Then the forest shook with another sound. A deep roar, different from before, echoed through the trees. The ground trembled, and from the shadows, the broken machines returned, their red lights flashing, their weapons glowing. The humans turned in shock, raising their guns. The protectors growled, forming a line once more. For a brief second, humans and aliens stood side by side, united by survival. The commander shouted, "Defensive positions!" and his soldiers formed a line with weapons ready. The protectors raised their arms, glowing energy spreading around them. The child stood in the middle, fear in his heart but also something new, something powerful. He saw humans and aliens together, and he felt hope. The machines attacked, beams of red fire cutting through the air. Humans fired back, bullets striking metal. Protectors unleashed blue energy that shattered the attackers. The battle was fierce, the clearing filled with smoke and light. The child crouched low, covering his ears, the ground shaking under his feet. The fight raged until the last machine fell, broken and smoking, its red light fading into darkness. Silence returned, heavy and tense. Humans lowered their weapons slowly. Protectors lowered their arms, their glowing eyes dimming. For the first time, they had fought together, not against each other. The commander looked at the protectors, his sharp eyes softer now. He gave a small nod, a silent sign of respect. The protectors did not nod back, but they did not move away either. The child stood and looked at both sides, his voice trembling but strong. "You see. They are not enemies. They are friends. No one answered, but the silence was no longer sharp with fear. It was heavy with thought, with the weight of a new possibility. Humans and aliens had touched the edge of trust, and the child was the bridge between them. Above, the stars watched in silence, waiting for what would come next. The forest was silent after the battle, the ground littered with broken machines and scorched trees. Smoke drifted upward into the darkening sky, and the smell of burning metal filled the air. The humans stood with their weapons lowered, their faces marked with sweat and fear, while the protectors remained tall and watchful, their glowing eyes fixed on the child as if to remind him he was still safe. For a long moment no one spoke. The commander looked at the aliens, then at the child, then at the broken machines, trying to understand what had just happened. Finally, one of the scientists who had traveled with the team stepped forward. She held a small scanning device in her hand, its screen glowing with strange symbols. "These machines," she whispered, "they are not from Earth. They were hunting the child, but not to kill him. They were scanning him, recording him, like he was the key to something." Her words made the soldiers uneasy. The commander frowned and asked, "And the aliens? What do they want with him?" The scientist turned the scanner toward the protectors and studied the readings. The energy patterns glowed softly, unlike the red spikes of the machines. "They are different," she said slowly. "Not invaders, not predators. Their energy matches life, not destruction. They are trying to protect him." The commander shook his head, unwilling to accept so easily. But before he could argue, the child stepped forward and touched the arm of the protector beside him. The tall being knelt down, its glowing eyes meeting the child's, and then it placed its hand on the ground, drawing shapes again. Circles, lines, stars, a story written in dust. The scientist watched carefully, her eyes wide. "It's language," she whispered. "They are trying to explain." The child repeated the sounds he had learned from them, his small voice trembling but clear. The protectors echoed him, their voices deep and powerful. Slowly, piece by piece, the meaning became clear. Long ago the protectors had faced extinction. Their world was full of predators and machines that wanted to erase them, and their survival depended on one sacred law: protect the young, no matter what species they belonged to. For them, children were the heart of life, the future of every world. To save one child was to honor life itself. That was why they had saved the human child. Not for power, not for control, but because it was their way, their promise, their truth. The humans listened in silence, the weight of the revelation heavy in their minds. Some soldiers lowered their eyes, ashamed of how quickly they had judged. The commander, however, remained cold. "If this is true," he said sharply, "then why hide him? Why keep him from us?" The protectors answered with more shapes, showing machines, red eyes, hunters in the dark. The scientist translated slowly. They knew he was being hunted. They knew the machines would follow the human signal. By keeping him hidden, they were saving him, not stealing him. The child nodded quickly, his voice breaking. "It's true. They saved me many times. They fought for me. They are not bad." The commander clenched his jaw, torn between duty and doubt. His orders were clear: bring the child back at any cost. But here before him stood proof that the universe was more complicated than simple orders. The scientist pressed her hand against the scanner, her voice firm. "These beings are not our enemies. They are survivors, just like us. And maybe they are offering something greater than we realize." The commander looked at her sharply. "And what is that?" The scientist took a deep breath. "An alliance. A chance to stand with another species, not against them. They saved a human child without asking for anything in return. That alone makes them different from every threat we have ever known." The soldiers shifted uneasily. Some nodded, others shook their heads, the tension heavy in the clearing. The protectors stood silent, watching, waiting for judgment. The child looked from one face to another, his small voice cutting through the silence. "They are my friends. If you hurt them, You hurt me too. The commander stared at the boy, his sharp eyes filled with conflict. He was a man trained to see enemies, to destroy threats before they grew, but here was a child speaking with courage stronger than any weapon. At last he lowered his weapon fully, signaling the others to stand down. The protector's glowing eyes softened, though they did not move closer. They understood caution, but they also understood respect. As the night fell, the humans and aliens remained in the same clearing, separated by fear but bound by a fragile truth. Fires burned to keep the beasts away, and for the first time the humans saw how the protectors lived. They did not sleep. They stood guard, their glowing eyes scanning the forest. They shared food and warmth with the child, and even offered it to the humans, though most refused. The scientist, however, accepted and tasted the glowing fruit, her eyes widening. "It heals," she whispered. "It is not poison. It is life." The more she studied them, the more the truth became undeniable. These beings were not conquerors. They were guardians of life, protectors of children, survivors of endless wars. And now they had chosen to protect a human. Far above, Earth listened to the signals being sent from the mission. Governments waited for news, eager for proof of danger or victory. But what they would soon hear was something different, something they had never expected. A story of beings who had chosen kindness over violence, survival through protection, and an unbreakable law that life must always come first. On that alien world, under strange stars, the truth had been revealed. The child was not a prisoner. He was a symbol. And the protectors were not enemies. They were something far more dangerous to old fears. They were proof that humans were not alone, and that the universe could hold allies instead of monsters. The fire crackled softly, the protectors stood tall, and the humans sat in uneasy silence, the weight of the hidden truth pressing down on every heart. The future had just changed, and none of them knew whether the world was ready for it. The night stretched long in the alien forest, the fire glowing low while humans and protectors sat in uneasy silence. The child slept close to the warmth, clutching his broken toy, but around him tension hung heavy like the smoke that drifted into the sky. The soldiers whispered quietly among themselves, their eyes often darting toward the towering protectors whose glowing eyes never blinked. Some soldiers muttered that these beings were dangerous, that they could not be trusted, that one day they might turn against humanity. Others, shaken by the way the protectors had fought side by side with them against the machines, admitted that maybe the aliens were not enemies after all. The commander sat apart, his face hidden in shadow, his thoughts torn between orders and truth. He had been trained to follow commands without question, yet what he had seen with his own eyes made him hesitate. The child's words echoed in his mind, "They are my friends." At dawn the scientist who had studied the protectors approached the commander with her scanner still glowing faintly. She spoke firmly, her voice steady despite the fear she knew would follow her words. "We cannot take the child by force. If we do, we will turn protectors into enemies. They are not holding him captive. They are guarding him because it is their way." The commander looked at her sharply, his voice low and cold. "Our orders are clear. The child must return to Earth. We cannot risk leaving him here." The scientist shook her head. "He will return, yes, but if we make war with his protectors, what will he learn from us? That humans only take, never listen. He will grow to hate us, and we will lose not only him but something greater. An ally we do not understand yet." The commander's jaw tightened. He glanced at the child still asleep and then at the protectors who stood unmoving, their glowing eyes watching the humans with silent patience. He wanted to see monsters, yet what he saw were guardians. Still, duty was a heavy chain. Later, when the soldiers gathered near the ship, the arguments grew louder. Some demanded they fire on the aliens while they had the chance. "They are strong," one soldier hissed, "too strong. If we don't act now, one day they will rise against us." Another shook his head. "You saw what they did. They had the chance to kill us, but they didn't. They protected us from the machines. That means something." The group split into two sides, suspicion battling with reason. The child woke during the argument and listened silently, his small face pale with fear. He understood enough to know that humans wanted to take him away, even if it meant fighting those who had become his protectors. That night, while the fire flickered low, the child sat beside the smallest protector and whispered, "I don't want to leave you. You are my family now." The protector tilted its head and placed its glowing hand gently over the child's heart. It made a low sound, repeating it softly. Though the child did not know the words, he felt their meaning. Family is not only blood. Family is who protects you. Tears filled his eyes, and he hugged the being's stone-like arm, his small voice trembling. "Please don't let them take me away." The protector did not answer, but its glowing eyes burned brighter, a silent promise of loyalty. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the secret councils argued just as fiercely. Some leaders saw the protectors as a threat that must be studied or destroyed. Others saw an opportunity, a chance to prove humans could stand with another species. Fear and hope clashed in every room, decisions pulled in every direction. On the alien world, the commander knew a choice had to be made. He could follow orders and rip the child from the arms of the protectors, risking war, or he could listen to his own heart and trust in what he had seen. The scientists stood beside him, urging him to choose peace. The soldiers looked to him for guidance, their trust heavy on his shoulders. The child's voice finally broke the silence. Standing before the humans and the protectors, his small hands shaking but his eyes full of fire, he said, "If you hurt them, I will never forgive you. They saved me when I was alone. They gave me food, water, and hope. They fought the monsters that hunted me. They are not my enemies. They are my friends. If you want to take me, then you must promise me you will not hurt them." The words of a child carried more weight than any weapon. The soldiers looked away, ashamed, their anger fading. Even the commander felt the chains of duty weaken. He saw not just a child but a bridge, a bond between two worlds. He understood then that this was not simply a mission to recover a lost boy. It was the beginning of something larger, something history would remember. Still, doubt gnawed at him. Could humans truly trust these beings? Could two species so different ever walk the same path? The protectors stood silent, waiting, their glowing eyes calm but unyielding. They would fight if attacked, but they would also offer peace if accepted. The commander finally exhaled, a long heavy breath. "We will not attack," he said at last. "But we cannot stay forever. Earth will demand answers. And soon, others may come who are not as willing to listen." His words fell like stones into the clearing. The child looked up at him, hope flickering in his eyes, and turned back to the protectors. "See. He understands. We can all be friends." The protectors did not speak, but they bowed their heads slightly, a gesture of acceptance. The forest grew quiet again, yet the tension remained. For the humans, the dilemma was clear: to take the child and risk turning protectors into enemies, or to trust in them and risk the anger of Earth's leaders. For the protectors, the choice was simpler. They would guard the child until the end, because that was their way. And for the child, the choice was the hardest of all: to return to Earth, his true home, or to stay with the ones who had become his family in the darkest hours. As the fire burned low, three futures lay before them, and the stars above seemed to watch in silence, waiting to see which path they would choose. The uneasy peace in the alien forest did not last long. The child slept near the fire, the humans sat in tense silence, and the protectors stood guard with glowing eyes, but deep in the distance a new sound began to rise. It was not the growl of beasts and not the hum of hunting machines. It was heavier, deeper, like thunder rolling through the ground. The protectors turned their heads sharply, their glowing eyes narrowing, and even before the humans could react the forest began to shake. Trees trembled, leaves fell, and strange lights flickered on the horizon. The commander ordered his soldiers to ready their weapons, the scientist grabbed her scanner, and the child clutched his broken toy, fear returning to his heart. The protectors stepped forward, their massive bodies forming a wall between the humans and the approaching storm. The ground cracked as massive shapes appeared through the trees. They were not simple machines this time. They were war engines, towering metal giants taller than the trees, their bodies glowing with red light, their movements heavy and unstoppable. Behind them smaller machines swarmed like insects, red eyes shining in the dark, weapons glowing with fire. The commander's voice broke the silence. Positions! Defend the child. Soldiers spread out, weapons raised, their hearts pounding. The protectors roared in their deep voices, the air around them glowing blue as energy gathered in their bodies. The child stood frozen, torn between fear and awe, as he watched humans and aliens preparing side by side for the fight of their lives. Then the great threat came crashing forward. The towering machines unleashed beams of red fire that tore through the forest, setting trees ablaze and shaking the earth. Humans fired back, bullets striking the smaller machines, sparks flying everywhere. The protectors raised their arms and unleashed waves of blue energy that clashed with the red beams in bursts of light that blinded the clearing. The sound was deafening, explosions shaking the air, the cries of soldiers mixing with the metallic screeches of machines. The child fell to his knees, covering his ears, tears in his eyes, but when he looked up he saw something that filled him with hope. Humans and protectors were fighting together, their movements different but united. Soldiers fired in the gaps left open by the protectors' shields. Protectors smashed machines that got too close to human lines. For the first time, there was no hesitation. They fought as allies. One massive war engine stepped forward, its red eyes fixed on the child. A giant weapon on its arm glowed brighter and brighter, ready to strike. The commander saw it and shouted, "Move him! Now!" A protector scooped up the child just as the weapon fired. The ground where he had been standing exploded in a wave of fire. The protector staggered but held on, its body glowing faintly from the impact. The child cried out, "No! Don't let go!" And the alien roared in pain but kept moving, refusing to drop him. The commander and his soldiers fired everything they had at the war engine, bullets and rockets slamming into its chest. The protectors joined in, blasting it with blue energy until at last the giant machine collapsed, shaking the ground as it fell. But more machines came. The clearing turned into a battlefield of light and fire, every second a fight for survival. Soldiers fell, protectors staggered, but none gave up. The child watched through tears, realizing that this was bigger than himself. This was a fight for both species, a fight against a power that wanted to erase life itself. As the battle raged, the scientist studied the signals on her scanner. Her eyes widened as she realized the truth. "These machines," she shouted over the chaos, "they are not acting alone. They are controlled by something greater, something above us." She pointed to the sky, where strange red lights now flickered among the stars. A fleet was coming. The commander's face grew pale. "If more of them land, we are finished." But the protectors did not falter. They stood taller, glowing brighter, their deep roars shaking the forest as they unleashed their full strength. The child felt their power in his chest, strong and unyielding. He turned to the humans, his small voice breaking through the thunder of battle. "You can't do this alone. You have to trust them. You have to fight together." His words struck the soldiers like a spark. Fear gave way to determination. Side by side with the protectors, they pushed forward, their firepower combining with the alien energy. One by one the smaller machines fell, crushed and broken. Another war engine collapsed under the combined assault, its glowing red eyes fading to black. The ground was littered with smoke, sparks, and burning metal, but still the fight raged on. At last, with one final surge of power, the protectors unleashed a shockwave of blue energy that swept through the clearing, shattering the remaining machines into pieces. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of fire and the ragged breaths of survivors. The child was still in the arms of the protector, safe but shaken. He looked at the battlefield, at the humans and aliens standing side by side, and he felt something deeper than fear. He felt destiny. The scientist fell to her knees, staring at the wreckage. "This is not random," she whispered. "These machines are a weapon of conquest. They were not only after the child. They are after all of us." The commander stood, his face grim, his weapon lowered. He looked at the protectors, then at the child, and for the first time his voice was not cold but steady with respect. "We cannot do this without them," he said. "If we fight alone, we lose. If we fight together, we have a chance." The protectors stood tall, their glowing eyes burning bright. They did not speak words the humans could understand, but their stance was clear. They were ready to fight, not just for the child, but for life itself. The child raised his broken toy like a symbol and whispered, "Together." The fire burned low, the forest scarred and broken, and the stars above glowed red with the promise of greater battles yet to come. The great threat had revealed itself, and now the choice was clear. Unity or destruction. Allies or enemies. Survival or extinction. The universe waited for their answer. The smoke of battle still hung in the alien forest, ashes glowing faintly as the last sparks of the broken machines faded into silence. Soldiers leaned on their weapons, exhausted and shaken, their armor scorched and torn. The protectors stood tall though their stone-like bodies were cracked and glowing faintly from the strain of the fight. The child sat on the ground, clutching his broken toy, his wide eyes filled with both fear and hope. The commander stared at the battlefield, the wreckage of war engines scattered like fallen giants, and for the first time he understood the truth. These protectors were not enemies. They were guardians. They had fought not only for the child but for everyone who stood against the great threat. The scientist's scanner flickered with weak signals, pointing toward the sky where faint red lights still glowed among the stars. "More are coming," she whispered, her voice trembling. This was only the beginning. The commander tightened his jaw. "Then Earth must know. We cannot hide this any longer." The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. Revealing the truth would shake the world. Humanity had always believed it was alone, but now they had proof of something greater, proof of life, of allies, and of enemies beyond imagination. The child stood up slowly, his small voice breaking the silence. "They saved me. They saved all of us. We have to save them too." The protectors bowed their massive heads slightly, their glowing eyes watching the boy with a quiet reverence. It was clear to everyone that the bond between the child and the protectors was deeper than anything words could describe. He was not just a survivor anymore. He had become a bridge between species. The commander finally nodded, his voice steady. "We return to Earth. But we do not return alone." Days later, the rescue ship lifted from the alien planet, its engines blazing as it carried the survivors away from the scarred forest. Inside the ship, soldiers sat in silence, their eyes often drifting toward the protectors who now filled the cargo bay, their massive forms glowing faintly in the dim light. No one spoke against their presence. They had earned their place. The child sat among them, leaning against one protector's arm, his eyes closing in tired peace. For the first time since his disappearance, he felt safe not because he was being hidden but because he was no longer alone. When the ship entered Earth's orbit, the world below changed forever. Governments scrambled, leaders demanded answers, and the secret councils were thrown into chaos. At first there was fear. Soldiers standing beside towering alien beings looked like a threat, not an alliance. But then the story spread, the child saved, the battle fought, the machines destroyed by unity. Images of humans and protectors fighting side by side shook the people more than any speech could. The child himself, standing small but brave before the leaders of Earth, spoke the words that would be remembered for generations. "They are not our enemies. They are our allies. They protected me when I was lost. They fought with us when death came. If we fight together, we can survive. If we fight alone, we will fall." His voice was simple, but it carried the weight of truth. The protectors, though they did not speak human words, lowered their massive heads in a gesture of peace that every person understood. Slowly fear gave way to wonder. Wonder gave way to hope. And hope turned into action. Across Earth, walls of secrecy crumbled. For the first time, humanity prepared not for war against itself, but for unity against the greater threat. Factories shifted to build defenses not only for humans but also for protectors. Scientists worked side by side with alien energy, learning and adapting. Soldiers trained not just in human tactics but in coordination with alien guardians. The child, though small, became a symbol. His image spread across the world, holding the broken toy that had survived every battle, standing between soldiers and protectors with a smile full of courage. People called him the Bridge, the first to prove that humanity was stronger not by fighting alone but by standing with others. But shadows remained. The sky was not silent. Red lights still flickered in the darkness above, watching, waiting, preparing. The machines were not finished. A greater force commanded them, a force that now knew Earth was no longer alone. The commander stood on the launch platform one night, staring at the stars, the scientist beside him. "Do you believe we can win?" he asked quietly. She looked at the protectors standing watch nearby, their glowing eyes steady and calm, and then at the child who laughed softly as he played with his broken toy. "We cannot win alone," she answered. "But together, maybe we have a chance." The commander nodded. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had nearly forgotten. Not fear, not duty, but hope. And so it began. Earth and its surprising allies prepared for a war not of conquest but of survival. Two species, different as night and day, bound together by a child who had once been lost but was now found. The protectors watched the humans with quiet patience, their deep voices rumbling like ancient drums as they taught and learned. The humans worked with restless energy, building, planning, uniting in ways they had never done before. Above them the stars glowed cold, hiding enemies that would one day descend. But this time Earth would not face them alone. This time Earth had allies. And in the heart of it all stood the child, his small voice echoing words that would shape the future. "Together we are strong."